Well, all right. So it is 11:31 AZ time. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Maddie Wagner. I am the digital marketing specialist with Johnson Consulting Group. Today we have Nelson Thulin, Director of Business Consulting Services at JCG, and John Heald, the General Manager of the Funeral Home Channel at Legacy.com. John and Nelson are here to talk about how to utilize obituaries as an asset to market your business. But just before we get started there, just as a friendly reminder, please feel free to type questions into the chat box on your control panel during the presentation, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. And with that, Nelson, take it away.
Thank you, Maddie. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself on the planet here. We were just commenting there's nearly 100 people participating in this webinar, and considering it's a Tuesday after a long holiday weekend, and it's kind of the new Monday, and we all know how busy Mondays can be. I think it explains just how valuable and important this webinar is, that people all over during the course of the pandemic, which continues to go on throughout the country, everybody's come to a realization about how powerful your individual websites are. I think we went from a belief that, you've got to have it, everybody else has one, to knowing now that it really is your new front door to your communities and the opportunities around you. I couldn't be more thrilled, and I'll say it quite frankly, to endorse John and Legacy.com. And I do so because we have these strategic partnerships with Johnson Consulting, with organizations, people, groups that do things better than we do. It's part of the growth management style that we embrace at Johnson Consulting is don't try to be all things to all people, but do try to put people in contact with others that do something better. And who could you ask to do something better than truly the largest organization in the country, dare say the world probably, when it comes to managing obituaries, newspaper obituaries, obituaries on your sites. This is without a doubt the premier organization. And I can tell you quite frankly, I've had half a dozen different meetings with John, and every single time I'm looking at it with a critical eye and trying to say, okay, but what's the catch? And over and over and over again, I found out that there really is no catch. It truly is just the obvious thing to do. And I'll let John explain it because he's clearly the expert. But I would jot this down that if this doesn't remain one of the things that you do in the last quarter here of 2021, to make sure that your websites are linked up and you have a site set up with Legacy.com, it really could potentially be the greatest thing you do in preparation of 2022. So with that being said, John, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nelson, and thank you, Maddie, for helping facilitate the discussion this afternoon. While it's 11:30 your time, it's 2:30 here in Boston. So I'm a little bit more than halfway through the day, and I'm actually doing this Zoom webinar here today from one of my favorite funeral homes in all of the country, and it's the Joyce Funeral Home located in Waltham, Massachusetts, and a state-of-the-art facility. But I wanted to, one, say hello to the family here, and two, just take advantage of his space, and going to say hello to a family later on as they're going to have some services. But that being said, Nelson did give you a very, I think, large welcome for me, but a little bit of background on myself. I am a funeral director. I did not grow up in the funeral business. I grew up around it. So while I am technically a fourth generation funeral director, my brother and I really consider ourselves first. We actually built our funeral home in 2010. in central Massachusetts and sold it 2 years ago. But if that wasn't enough, we had also started tributes.com back in 2008, which was really a site to help consumers find obituaries. And our core focus was on funeral homes. And fortunately, over some time, patience, and persistency, we got tributes to a really good place. And Legacy, and for all intents, our competitor, acquired us. And since that time, I've had a role with them that's just been absolutely fascinating. And one of the best things that I get to do is travel the country, meeting with funeral directors. So I mean that wholeheartedly. I'm going to go spend a couple of hours in Providence tomorrow, and as we get back on the road, just visiting with funeral homes. From a personal perspective, and I share this because I know that Jake Johnson was one of like the original kind of founding board members. I now serve on the Funeral Service Foundation as a representative of Legacy.com, and just one of the most amazing organization in terms of what they do and their desire to give back. And yes, that means financially to so many different causes and needs throughout our profession. So just from a personal perspective, I wanted to share that. But my goal here today, it's going to be quite simple. There is no one that knows the obituary better than the folks on this call. You do them every single day, ideally for every single family. I have some questions for those that are not. But Nelson pointed out the largest organization. The reality is Legacy is we've been around since 1998, which makes us a very, very old startup. And we really do take that perspective in that there's just been a lot of change and great things happening at our company, but we've also got some significant relationships throughout not only the newspaper side of the house, but in the world of funeral service as well. And proud of it and growing it every single day. But I laugh at this slide because it started back in 1999 when Stouffer Bartle, our CEO on the right side of this picture here, went to the first trade show. The name of the company was Obit Details. And they were kind of introducing themselves to the funeral profession and said, hey, we're here. We'd love to build you websites. We'd love to have you put the obituaries of the families you're serving on those websites. What do you think about it? And it did not go well. If you think about the World Wide Web back then, most of the funeral profession said, I don't need a website. We are all set. We don't need to do it. So they were able to quickly pivot and learn this, a number of different things, but we're able to find some significant relationships with the newspapers so that for all intents, any newspaper across the country where you're looking at obituaries, whether it be the Boston Globe, the Indianapolis Star, the AZ Republic, the obituary section online is powered by Legacy.com. But we've been around for a while. So, I say this and put this out there as a question. What do you think about obituaries other than just, something that you do in terms of providing a service to the family? But I ask this because do you ever consider them a part of your marketing plan? And I hope to review that and a little bit more here in the presentation today. But here's my premise. I think the number one goal should be to get people to your funeral home or place of service, right? That's kind of where you shine. Your facilities, your staff, the level of service that you provide the families and their guests. That is your best marketing vehicle in terms of customer retention, customer growth, all of the things that you want to do to make sure that you're serving X number of families every single year. So the goal is to get people to your place of business. And one of the best ways in which to do that is to announce a death. And if they don't know about a death, they are not going to know about your funeral home. So we Nelson, Maddie, and I were just talking about COVID and travel and all of the other things. And one of the things I said, I was, watching a college football game in Wisconsin this weekend and 100,000 people in the stadium. And to my mind, my first thought was, well, what COVID? But as we think about what happened at the height of COVID last year, the pandemic changed rituals in terms of how people grieve. And the obituary pages in newspapers came to where people mourned. And as the Washington Post pointed out, they're becoming the communal space for us to grieve together at this moment. The Boston Globe, in its peak, ran 26 pages of death notices, which would typically on a Sunday average maybe 3, but those in funeral service could probably deduce that while there were no services during the height of the pandemic, and if there were, they were private, all of the funeral homes had suggested, look, let's just put the obituary on Sunday, the most widely read day of the week, so let's take advantage of that. but 26 pages of death notices had other newspapers across the country going, what is going on in Boston? And we were no different than a lot of other states, but for a small state, we were hit pretty hard with COVID. So really, I think I know a lot about obituaries because it's all I do every single day. And I not only read obits, but I look at funeral homes websites. I read amazing obits. I read some that I just, I wish that there were more. I'd like to know more about that person. And I think that's where, the opportunity to think about the next arrangement, and I mean this, the next funeral arrangement you make, to think about the obituary a little bit differently. So I'm not professing to be an expert, but what I want to walk you through is just some things that I've learned over the years. But let's take a look at the landscape. And with COVID, we're projecting, and the CDC is projecting, there's going to be about 3 million deaths. There's roughly 2.4 million of those deaths that have obituaries that are placed in some form of public record, meaning newspaper obituary online and in print, and then also now on the funeral home's website. But a question that I have is, are you publishing an obituary for all of the families you serve? And by that, I mean, I 100% understand the families that want privacy. They want no public record. Therefore, there will never be any public obituary in the newspaper or on the funeral home website. But what has been fascinating to me in studying obits across the country, in particular the West Coast, and I don't know why. Maybe we always say the two coasts do things a little bit differently, or they're ahead of what's to come. But a lot of the obituaries that are put in newspapers are done by consumers. We call them private party obituaries. And the number of people that inquire that say, I want to have an obituary on legacy.com causes to think, well, is the obituary even being offered at the funeral home or cremation society level? And if not, then perhaps is there an opportunity to look at it a little bit differently? So there's a lot there, but there's a lot that's missing. And I love this quote from Tom Antrim, who's just a really great operator in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he said this very simply, but no one can read an obit they can't find. So that being said, we'll go back and just say that if your obituaries are put out there in a public forum, that the chances of someone finding that obituary, reading it, engaging in one form or another, and in a perfect world, if they're local, get to that service, is going to be the best way for you to continue to market your business. And here's the reality. Consumers want obituaries. They want to read them. In fact, the interest in obituary content has doubled in the last 5 years. If you were to look at on the bottom left here of the slide, August 21 of 2017, all the way up to March of 2021, it's been a gradual increase, but that increase is not going to go away. And the interest in obituaries, in quotes, is nearly double that of funeral homes. And if you think of why a consumer is looking for funeral homes, chances are there might be a need, or they've got to get to a service as a result of it. But here's one thing that we study at Legacy. Who is reading obituaries? And we know that from our traffic, meaning we have 44 million monthly unique visitors who come to look for obit and funeral home related information every single month on our site. The average age of the user is 56 years old. 55% of them are homeowners, 63% women. Some good stats here, and 71,000 with a median income. But think about this on the right side of the slide here. They are obituary readers, they are pre-planners, or there might be an immediate need. So that said, as a business owner, I go, I need to be showing up if people are looking for any of that type of information, funeral homes or obituaries. We've also bucketed our users into a couple of different categories. We have mourners, browsers, and then we even further categorize them. But mourners are people who have experienced a death. They just learned that someone they knew passed away. And they typically will go to the website once a month, skews very much younger, 35 to 45 years old. Most of the traffic is coming in from a mobile device versus the browsers who are, there was no death, but it's like the person in your market who's taking the newspaper to the local coffee shop. They have it open and they just want to know who passed away. And if in fact, maybe they knew them or surprised by one. Typically skew older, they go 5 to 6 times a month to read obituaries. And again, the mobile version is a little bit lower, 50%, but clearly a lot of the traffic is coming from those mobile devices. But I don't care what bucket they're in, whether they're a mourner or a browser, if they're reading obituaries, you want to make sure that they're going to see your name. So one of the interesting studies that we had, because we've got so many significant partnerships with newspapers, is that the obits from an online perspective get almost double the traffic that the local news gets. So if you look on the right, news traffic gets about 17% of the clicks, then it drops off drastically to sports, classified, some of the other stuff. Obituaries were getting 39% of the overall clicks across a major number of newspapers that this group owned, so much so that they didn't realize it was that high. So again, it tells me as a business that if I have an opportunity to have an obituary put out there, I want to go where people are looking for it. And it happens to be at the newspaper's website. But we're going to talk about, kind of what's happening to that print obituary here in a few minutes. Simply said, obituaries help you serve the family and the community by memorializing the deceased, notifying the local community, helping to gather mourners at a funeral, and then giving them an opportunity to share their sympathy. So I think it, in a couple of things, it allows the community to show support, but also share in their loss and grief, connectively, whether it be online or in person. So one of the things I want to talk about kind of earlier than later are just best practices, right? And this is just something that I think I've learned and will continue to refine over the years. But I think of the 150 things you need to do as a funeral director when someone passes away, there's 3 really, really important ones. They're all important, so please don't take that the wrong way. But I put these 3 as kind of the primary: taking care of the decedent, obviously, and then serving that family and exceeding every single expectation they may or may not have. But the way in which you do that is to the next one, number 3, is to tell everyone that someone died. So, in my opinion, I think obituary should be a standard service that's provided in every single funeral arrangement. And with the exception of the families that say, I need privacy, I don't want anyone to know about mom or dad's death, I get that. But the number of funeral home websites that I'll come across that a funeral home will share with me that they served 1,000 families last year, and I will already have done the homework, and I will physically count obituaries on their website. And I said, well, that's an amazing business, but one question I have is that I think on average I've seen about 400 obituaries on any given year on the funeral home website, and can you help me better understand that? So I think for those 600 families that didn't get an obituary, why? And if there's something that we can do, what is it? So, post an obituary for every single family, no matter what kind of memorial options they choose. And, my brother and I were always of the opinion that when the death occurred, we would put that notice up immediately, even though pending further information or arrangements are incomplete. Just one, from a selfish Google perspective, but 2, we wanted to let everyone know in the community that we were helping serve a family. So what does a good obituary look like? And I put this second part here as something I encourage you to think about. Make it part of your brand. Think about this. You open up the newspaper, or you go to different websites, and you read obituaries, and they all kind of read the same, don't they? Like I don't know if it's habitual where you copy and paste from previous obituary, or it's just easier because we've got this format by the newspaper, but then you put something different on at your funeral home website. There is such an opportunity to make the obituary one of your signature services, almost have it become one of those things where in the community they go, wow, that's a healed obituary. So let me show you what I mean by that. So here's an obituary for an older gentleman who was in the community, and Mr. Noonan was certainly a great person. But I think what I loved about this, and I'll give full credit to my twin brother Jim, who writes the best obituaries I've ever read. And they're so good that he was known in the community that if it was in the newspaper, it would be, oh, that's a Jim Heald obituary. But I think what I like about this is that if you look at the opening sentence of Mr. Noonan's obituary, who was very proud of his service to the country, it opened with that. So I think in that listening exercise during the arrangement process, knowing that the time spent in the services was near and dear, how do you correlate that into putting an opening sentence here that just doesn't start that Tommy Noonan died on July 7th, 2019, survived by loving what, the repetitive nature that we come into, but I think we do such a great job in gathering all of that information. What can we do to take it and make it truly unique so that when the family reads the obit that you put together for the first time, they go, wow, he or she really captured my mom or dad's story. This is just amazing. It's excellent. I equate it to this. Think about the first time the family comes into the funeral home or the church, wherever the services are being held, and they look at mom and dad in the casket, and they have that aha moment when he or she looks so good and so peaceful that they come to you and they're grateful, like you made her look so good. You've got that same opportunity to do this from a content perspective by thinking about the obituary, constructing it in a way different from the one you just wrote for the other family. This one I get a kick out of here, Fred Arnold. And this was one of the most viral obituaries at legacy.com. And, the first sentence, first paragraph kind of sums it up really nicely. On the morning of 7/7/21, after a night out in New Orleans with his favorite girl at his favorite restaurant and more than one gin martini, Fred Arnold flew away to that great second line in the sky. He died as much as he lived, fast and not feeling any pain. He was glorious. He went gloriously. So and these examples will be sent out as a follow-up to you, but there's just so much opportunity to construct the obituary differently. You're getting the information. Just think about how you can do this. This was an obituary I actually learned about Facebook over the weekend, where a young police officer died of pancreatic cancer. And, it was such a great opener that the name Iggy conjures a smile from everyone, embodies the traits of a good person. So I'm not sharing with you anything you don't know. The only thing I'm asking is that you think about your obituaries and how you make them differently, how you make them unique to what you do, how you do it, so that, again, when you send that draft of an obit to a family, they're going to go, you did an amazing job telling my dad's story. That's where we've got a huge opportunity in front of us, and do it for every single family we're serving. And, maybe challenge the ones that are saying, I don't want an obit, because one, it's tremendous marketing value to the funeral, but you also need a record. You need some place for that memorial to live, and it happens to be at your website and maybe other places as we go there. But let's just take a step back and look at what's happened to the newspaper obituary. And historically, it was the number one way to tell the community that someone's died. Obituaries were free, and typically the first job out of journalism school was on the obit desk. Then they went from free to paid. They went from well-written autobiographical stories to death notices, now charged by the column inch or agate line, forcing families to cut back and funeral homes to become editors. I mean, it's a challenge. But obituary rates are going down significantly in print across the country as consumers find new mediums to share the news of the death of a loved one. Facebook, anywhere. I don't think we're at the TikTok stage, but there are just all sorts of ways in which people are trying to communicate that their dad lied, texting, so forth and so on. But let's think about this, because that's the purpose of why we're getting together. The marketing value of the obituary. And I don't mean this in a negative way anyway, but what other business can you get someone else to pay for your marketing? I don't know of any. And I mean, when you place an obituary in the newspaper, it is one of the best forms of advertising that you get. So if we were to try to monetize it, say that your firm serves 150 calls per year, maybe 80% of those families are getting an obit in the newspaper. I would say 80% is very high. I would say most placement rates in the newspapers are 50% and declining. But let's put a $350 average cost. That's $42,000 of paid marketing for obits in the newspaper. Now, here's my suggestion to you. A little bit of homework. Find out how many obits you put into your local newspaper last year or this year, year to date. Find out what your spend is and get a meeting with your local newspaper rep. Have a conversation. Let them understand what your challenges are. Share with them what you know. And I'm talking maybe for the first time ever, negotiate a deal, right? I've always thought that the funeral home is an agency. You just happen to be an agency that's placing death notices. I can't and won't address the FTC concerns on here. You can get guidance, you can call me after, but there is an opportunity for you to either have a different 2022 or get some things that perhaps may not have been available to you as well. But here's the other thing. The newspapers, I really do believe, want to help you. And that help may be coming up with a standard obit, a better price, different deadlines. But I think there's a real opportunity for you guys to look at what it is that you're doing locally, and then never mind what you're doing on your websites there alone. So there's a big question. What's the future of the print obituary? My hands are in the air. I don't know. I will tell you, in some markets, print will go away. In certain markets already, the print obituary has gone from 7-day publication to one, just one. Or now it's 7, it's 5, it's 3. But I do believe print newspapers in markets will go away. But as my slide previously showed you, the online properties are alive and well, and the traffic they garner is significant. So, I'm a believer that distribution matters, and really don't take my word for it. If you look at Facebook, obituaries are the 3rd largest category on Facebook, appearing in your local news feeds. Social media leads, I know there's a lot of experimentation with Facebook and pre-need seminars and lead gen. Syndicated content, I put this one in the middle because I think it's extremely important, and what we're going to talk to you a little bit more here now. The more links to your website give your home more first page search placements. Extremely important. So, and I think we all know that 75% of users never scroll past the first page in a Google search result. So, people are searching for obituaries more than they are for funeral home, but obituaries are going to help you rank. So important, again, to make sure that if you have the opportunity, do one for every single family. Here's just a quick kind of example. We've done this little model here where if you put in Weinstein Funeral Home, the first 2 results are going to get the most clicks. So 1 and 2 there, 25 to 40% click-through rate on the first link, 15 to 20 on the second. The last 4 here aren't even the funeral home's website. So if you're not getting those first 2 results, there is a massive missed opportunity to make sure that you, one, are appearing. So I challenge you to every month go and just see how you're appearing. Weinstein Funeral Home or Healed Funeral Home Cremation. Test a number of different keyword marketing terms to see how you're appearing. And if you're not, there are plenty of experts out there. And I know the team at J3 Tech has probably got some tools up their sleeve that can help you as well. So important. And the funeral home will never be the only search result. It's just simple. Google doesn't work that way. Here's a quick example. I call it a tale of 2 funeral homes. So in June, we performed Google search evaluations on 2 very large funeral homes. And the goal was really to discover how much search traffic each of these partners received from their obituaries. And we performed the multiple searches on the phrase name of the decedent, plus the word obit. And here's what we found. So this is a multi-rooftop Sunbelt funeral home that has a sophisticated website with good quality obituaries. But because they weren't syndicating their obits, meaning they were primarily at the funeral home's website, it left a lot of results and a lot of clicks and potential leads behind. So we did the name search up here and we grade them out. First one was not the deceased. Right funeral home, wrong person. Still not the deceased. So just a ton of missed opportunity in terms of not ranking properly when someone's trying to find an obituary of being served by one of the funeral homes. So I really do believe that without third-party obituaries, the correct notice sometimes will never appear in an online search. And I think that's where we can help. Legacy can help you as we move forward here. But the other firm, Desert State Mortuary, we found the obituary we needed immediately at the top. And actually right beneath that were results that followed with more good links, including some social media posts that shared the correct obituary with families and friends of the deceased. So top results are relevant to the brand, and then some engaging content below in terms of a search with, up to an 87% click-through rate. So as simple as it sounds, obits are good content. They change every single day, obviously, with the new ones you're putting up there. That's very important as you look at your website, the organic citations that you get from Google, and more. So the question I have, and because there's just there's a lot of debate, I think, if you will, and I'll put it this way, and you know, uh, there's two ways to look at how you would position your obituaries. There's the one-way street, which is the mindset where I have the obits on my funeral website. That's the only place I need them. I don't need to have my obituaries anywhere else. If they're going to want to read the obituary, they're going to get to me. And I want 100% of my traffic, even though the only one who benefits from that really is my website provider. And I say this because I think some of the information is being provided by that website provider that you should only have obits on your website. It's not good. You sell all the flowers because, oh, by the way, that's how we make our money as well. Versus, on the right side of the slide here, call it the syndication expressway. I am of the mindset, I want as many people as physically human possible to see my name and the obituaries of the families that we're serving. So I want that net to be as cast as wide and deep as possible. And the only way that I'm going to be able to do that is to have those syndicated out onto larger networks. Yep, there's a plug. Legacy's got a network that those obituaries can be put out on. But it's so important, just from a search perspective, that if someone's looking for that obit, I just want them, one, to find it, and two, to see my name, three, to click through to my website. If they're going to buy flowers, someone cut me in on it. Okay, Legacy, I want a piece of the revenue. That's fine. Those are things that are realistic and you should ask for. But the idea that obits reside on your website only, I don't think that that's the best business practice for you to continually make sure that you're garnering every single piece of traffic of people looking for obituaries. Think about it. I always joke that the only people who have worse hours than funeral homes are restaurants, right? But I ask this, do you think, or do restaurants think that DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats were bad for their business? No, in fact, they want to make sure that their restaurants appear on all of them, because if someone's looking for, some type of a meal or anything, that they have an opportunity to be the ones to provide that. So that being said, it's all about being found. I follow Welton Hong closely, and he's built himself quite a brand here. And he said this. I didn't pay him for it or anything, but he said you need to view Legacy as an important channel to market your business. They have the audience that funeral homes need to be in front of. And as I described, traffic in our user type in browsers and mourners are your biggest opportunities for more and more people to see you and to engage with you. So I'm gonna kind of stop there, but I want to do a little bit of talk about Legacy itself and what we're doing, because as I mentioned, historically we've been partnered with the newspapers for quite a long time, but unbeknownst to a lot of funeral homes in the profession, we've got some significant partnerships in our channel as well, and continuing to grow every single day. So we've come out with a solution. It's called Legacy Pro. And let me start with our favorite four-letter word. It's free, right? So Nelson actually at the beginning said, I've had a number of engagements and conversations with John, and he kind of gets to the end of the call or the meeting and says, what's the catch? And my point is, there is no catch. We, Legacy, are really, I don't want to say putting our money where our mouth is, but we are, because we're not charging for this. And if someone were to go and pay for this, it could be fairly expensive, meaning you want that traffic in this market with that type of user base, that could get very expensive. But what we want to do for the funeral homes that are interested in is provide you with Legacy Pro and really give you access to a suite of marketing tools that are going to give you exposure, insights, and new revenue opportunities. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. But starting down here on insights, market share and traffic, up here for exposure, syndicating your obits onto the largest network for consumers looking for funeral homes and obits. Where else would you want to be other than having them at your website? And let me say this, I am always of the opinion that if I can have the user at my website, that's where I want them. But if they don't know you have the call, how are they going to even get there? So take advantage of someone that can help, one, increase that exposure, and two, the potential click through to your website. But on revenue, let's do some revenue share on flower sales. So our biggest objections, and I've been with Legacy since May of 2015, the biggest objections were, you steal my traffic and you sell flowers and you don't pay me. Well, we will show to you every single month, unequivocally, we will drive incremental traffic, and we will pay you for any flower sales that are happening as a result of having your obits on Legacy Network. but we're also doing some interesting thing on lead gen as well. Here's our market intelligence. If I took a poll and I asked you how many of you track your competitors' call volume, most of you would say yes. What I'm saying is we can do it for you, and we can do it programmatically. I'm going to take you live to a dashboard here in a minute. Syndication, in exchange for all of your obituaries we do this programmatically. Take the obituaries from the funeral home website, put them up on Legacy, and then we will, what we call, boost them in terms of making sure we maximize the number of people that will see those obituaries. And if there's e-commerce that happens as a result of it, we'll pay the funeral home 20% revenue share. Also, use your preferred florist. I know we all have relationships locally. If you have someone that you like to use local, we'll plug those flower shops in as well. We've got a funeral home directory, the largest funeral home directory for consumers looking for funeral homes. I'm going to show you a page of what that looks like here in a minute. But I say here in the bottom left, it is so important from a Google perspective, from the organic search citation. You want that. And then we've got some advertising. But let me jump out to the dashboard. I want to show you this. And this happens to be a really good client of Johnson Consulting, and they've given permission for me to share this. But every month we send an email out to the clients that says your dashboard's been updated with information. So they log in and they click the first button. And the first button shows us their competitors and the number of obits placed on their funeral home website by location. So we will programmatically do this for you. And based on the competitors that are being tracked, that gives you a market share sense of what's happening every single month. You tell us who the competitors are, we'll track them, we'll put them into your dashboard. We also want to show you traffic. So we want to show you how many people are viewing your obituaries. If they happen to be in a newspaper market where we power it, the blue bars are newspaper traffic, the gold are non-newspaper. So those are obits on the funeral website that now programmatically get put onto Legacy. So we call them Legacy Pro. We want to show you the traffic every single month of what's happening with obits in their network. Down here, the directory, we want to show you on a monthly basis how many people are engaging and visiting those. And then we're going to go down here. How many of them actually visit your website, the directory page? How many of them click to your website? How many click the lead form? Lead form, I mean, this is what you guys want. You want more people asking for benefits of planning ahead or why they should contact you. How many click the phone number? And then how many people bought flower sales? So this is the dashboard that we will set everyone up with so that you have access to this, on a monthly basis. But back to the directory page, we want your directory page to look really nice. So you have, I'm going to show you here in a minute, but you go onto Legacy and you click the funeral homes button, your listing is there. We just want your listing page to look really nice. Meaning, if you have photos of the facility, let's put them up here. If you've got about us, which I know you do, let's put some content on here that lets the user know why choose us or what's special about this particular funeral. If you have video, put up the video. So that's Buddy Finef, who's a good operator up in the New Hampshire market. Again, here's Linquist page in the Ogden, Utah market that, again, those stats that I showed you, we are reporting that out in this dashboard every single month. So one of the things I want you to do, or I'd encourage you to do, is go to legacy.com and literally click the funeral homes button and go in here and put in your funeral home name or put in the city and state that you are there and hit search. You're going to get your listing page. There's going to be an unclaimed button. You claim it at the starter level. You get everything else that I just mentioned at no cost. All I would do is then just need to follow up with you. If you're interested in the market intelligence, who are the competitors you want to track for a couple of months? Let us show to you, what's happening based on your market for obits being placed on the funeral home website. And I want to be clear, we're not counting obits at the newspaper, but we count them at the funeral home's website. So it gives you a sense of what's happening, on the monthly basis in that dashboard. So there's a lot. And I really didn't want this to be, promotional about Legacy, but, I did want to take advantage of it because Nelson pointed out, what's the catch, John? The other question, even from some naysayers that were out in the market, maybe perhaps of some misinformation, is, John, why wouldn't I try this? And the answer is there is no reason you wouldn't try it. It's on us to prove ourselves out. We have been doing a lot of work from a perspective of legacy in the funeral channel, and we will continue to do a lot. I'm the funeral director inside the four square walls at Legacy, and I want to make sure whatever we do is going to benefit our funeral partners, and that we continue to deliver services. And if those services are okay, it's more flower revenue opportunity, or I want some lead gen for my directory listing. I like the analytics. I like the market intel. Just keep it coming and keep filling up that dashboard with important information. But I want to be conscious of the time. But that being said, my contact information is there. My cell phone's there for you. There's a URL there for you to go in there and actually shows you how to claim the listing. Even though I gave you a quick walk, it's very simple and straightforward. But I would love an opportunity to just work with anyone here that's interested in learning more about legacy. And as I said, let us prove the value of what we're doing to you. If it takes care of itself, great. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. That's really okay. But I think we've done a lot. We're going to continue to do a lot. So, with that, Nelson, I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to a lot of the wonderful Johnson Consulting clients.
Thank you, John. I do these webinars, and I'm always taking my own notes as we go along and thinking about the things that I want to ask or the things that I want to add to it. And quite frankly, your presentation was so complete. There's nothing I have to add or ask other than just as a reminder, once again, for everything that you just showed everybody, the cost is
free.
Free.
It's free.
And here's a little additional info for everyone. Johnson Consulting, obviously, performance tracker, satisfaction surveys. We're one of the largest survey of post-funeral care out there. And in 2020, we do a market relevance report. So what that is every family is asked, what were some of the main things that drew you to the funeral home that you selected? And in 2020, a majority of that, I'm sure, was driven by pandemic and people in their homes not being able to go to funeral homes. But for the first time ever, websites outdistance all other forms of advertising. All other forms of advertising combined, websites outdistance that, and it continues to be the case here in 2021. And I venture to say I don't see that going backwards for any reason whatsoever. And I think there too to probably look to your own sensibilities as far as what our responsibility as funeral directors are. And I would say this is the vast majority of us are never going to find ourselves in the newspaper or the history books. The vast majority of us, the only thing that's ever going to be written down and recorded for future generations to look back and know that we existed and what we did is going to be our obituary. And you think about what awesome responsibility that is for anyone in the funeral profession to be that caretaker, that recorder of the common person, not the world leaders, not the people that had some impact in social or entertainment or political, but just the everyday person that got up, did what they did to take care of their family, made a difference in their communities. That really falls to us as funeral directors, cemeterians, anybody that has that chance to record a person's legacy. And it goes right with the name here. And I can't begin to stress that. I would say if you were to turn a mirror to yourself as you look to 2020 and look for any kind of resolutions, look at what you do for for your obituaries. I would encourage you to go beyond the simple death notice. And as John said, as you can embellish upon them to bring people's emotional tie to that person. It's long been said the sweetest sound is the sound of your own name when people say it. It just is true. It catches our attention. But next to that are the people that we know or the places that we're familiar with. And obituaries do that. They draw the attention. They pull people's focus in. You have a really good obituary, and then you add to that what a obit site can allow you online with pictures. The longer you hold people to your website, the greater the sense of a relationship and bond to that website is. We see it through the different tracking services, the number of people that every day there's people that sign up to be notified of new obituaries in their local newspaper and things like that.
You know, Nelson, you said it perfectly that, you know, we are the historians or we're the record keepers, if you will. We're facilitating the ability to have that life story be permanently stored somewhere. And while we thought it was the newspaper, or in fact, sometimes it is and it will be, that opportunity for those families that are saying no is that, you know, one of our core strengths is or responsibilities is to provide that permanent record place for your loved one. And the way in which we do that is the obituary. And the one thing I might add to this is that, you know, we're not all, you know, English majors and we didn't go to journalism school. And maybe sometimes we're so busy because we're serving a significant number of families, but there's always someone in that family that needs a responsibility, right? So give them the tool to write that obituary and just have them get it to you. You've got the medium which to distribute it, but put the onus, and I don't mean that, but if you can't, let them do it and provide them with some framework, i.e. a good obituary or two that allow them to, you know, memorialize their loved one in a way that they didn't think about.
Yeah, and John, you mentioned it in passing there too, I think when you said you and your brother first started out, but you know, there's so many layers. You can put out a pre-obituary, make people aware that there's going to be more tomorrow. I've seen funeral homes that do follow-ups, you know, the
Yep.
services for John were held, and if you want to read the complete obituary, go online. I mean, there's so many opportunities to redirect people back multiple times for the same individual.
Well, fundamentally, it gets back to marketing, right? First of all, you're helping a family with that experience, that need, that desire to share the death of a loved one. But from a Google and a search perspective, and people who are just genuinely reading obituaries, it is the number one way in which to talk and represent your brand. To do it differently, and I mean that, the next arrangement for those West Coasters, the next arrangement, how much different can you make that famous obituary than the one previous? And then just do a great job stressing that throughout your organization that we've got to make our obituaries one of our signature services.
Yeah, and our last webinar that we had with one of our other strategic partners, ClearPoint, we talked about data-driven decisions and the value of what John provides by collecting the data, not only on yourself, but your competitors, really gives you a tremendous advantage to see what's going on with your business. I oftentimes work with new clients, and they'll explain to me and said, yeah, we're really steady, everything's going, we're doing about 300 calls a year, you know, we're really happy. And then we start doing market research, and we see that actually the aggregate number of deaths that have occurred have gone up. Sometimes you really don't know where your place in the world is until you're starting to keep score on everybody. And you could easily feel like you are a steady Eddie and just doing fine, but maybe everybody else is picking up 2 or 3% market share. You don't know that unless you know the numbers. And any winning team always keeps score. And John provides a tremendous amount of information literally at your fingertips. I don't see any questions out there, and encourage everybody or anybody to. I think clearly John has his focus on this. We can help you as well at Johnson Consulting. We have free available consulting that if you want to talk to us, and again to John specifically about obituaries and how to write them, how to use them in your arrangement conference, as far as sometimes it's a great way to bridge that gap when you have to step out of the room and start adding up numbers or things like that, give the family an opportunity to work on that. I know funeral homes that even provide the family with outline information when they go to the home, or they'll take the first call and email them an outline. Just to ask the questions about how would you like for the world to remember your mom or dad? What's the special thing that you'd like to make sure that we put into their obituary? And I dare say you would get quite a volume. So, well, we got Will. Thank you very much. Nice compliment. Again, if there's any questions or any interest in following up, you've got John's information. I would encourage you to do a screenshot there. And as always, you can reach out to us at Johnson Consulting as well. But John, I remain ever amazed at the program that you have, and the fact again that it's free. They'll do everything for you. If you've got a website up, they can capture that and just recreate it. So there's really very little as far as obstacles to get you up and running and utilizing this and gaining all the benefits of the information that John can make available. So.
Awesome.
Well, that's it, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Nelson and Maddie. I appreciate you, the time and the opportunity and orchestrating this all here on a Tuesday after Labor Day. I really do appreciate that.
Maddie, take it away.
Thanks, Nelson. And thank you so much, John. This presentation was amazing. As somebody who works in digital marketing, my ears were buzzing. I loved it, especially talking about the organic citations. You cannot underestimate those. Like, they are very important. But yeah, once again, thank you so much. John's contact information is here. We are also going to be we're going to put this up on YouTube, this presentation. And so then we'll send you guys out a link within the next 24 to 48 hours via email that will include that. So, and yes, please reach out to John or to us at info@johnsonconsulting.com anytime if you have any questions. So thank you once again, and thank everybody for attending, and have a great day and a great week.
Great. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.